GBBC for organizing and inviting this. And I just want to say, I'm your moderator, Jeff Bandman. I'm also one of the founders of Global Digital Finance, and so I couldn't be more thrilled with this merger with GBBC. The GBBC CEO, Sandra, and I have known each other since kind of our pre-crypto days when she was at the CME actually fighting to try to get Bitcoin products launched on exchange. I was a financial regulator at the CFTC where I actually had two roles. One of them was oversight of financial market infrastructure, like clearinghouses, and also launching the CFTC's Innovation Hub, Lab CFTC. So this panel combines two of my passions, both crypto and infrastructure, and really, really thrilled to be here. And so we have four absolutely wonderful panelists and experts to help orient us to the important world of infrastructure. And I'll just ask them to introduce themselves, starting with Marta to my left, and then have the panelists go across, and then we'll jump into the discussion.
Hi, I'm Marta Belcher. I'm the chair and president of the Filecoin Foundation. I'm also the general counsel and head of policy at Protocol Labs, and I'm special counsel at the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
I'm Gene Hoffman. I'm the guy who runs the business for Bramcoin's new Layer 1 blockchain called Chia. We are the most decentralized blockchain ever with 200,000 full nodes, down from 400,000 full nodes all around the world. The World Bank has chosen us to be the climate warehouse, so we're bringing real-world applications to blockchains.
My name is Todd. I am the director for tokens.com. We own approximately 60% of Decentralized. I am also... Hello, everybody. I'm also CEO of MMH Group, and I'm really impressed that you knew Sandra BC before crypto.
Hi, Justin Banon. I'm co-founder of Boson Protocol. Boson is crypto's commerce layer, and we're here at Davos chatting with lots of friends, and also have just been awarded a World Economic Forum Technology Pioneer, so really enjoying meeting everyone here.
Great. Congratulations, Justin. That's great. That's great. So, of course, since we do have two lawyers on the panel, I think we need to begin with definitions. And so, fortunately, we have someone who's extremely perfectly qualified and knowledgeable to do this. So, Marta, how would you define Web 3, and what do you see as the key differences between Web 2 and Web 3?
Yeah, so I think, to be a little less of a lawyer about it, I would say I think the thing about Web 2 is Web 2 is a world in which we live so much of our lives through just a handful of central intermediaries, right? And we really have no choice but to trust those intermediaries, to trust that the things that they're showing us are accurate and genuine, to trust them with the massive amounts of data that they collect about us, and to trust that they're protecting our data from attackers and also protecting our civil liberties when governments are coming to ask for that data. And so for me, the key thing about Web3 is this ability to not have to live our lives through centralized intermediaries and to regain control over our data and not have one central player that's making those very important decisions for us.
Great, thanks, Marta. And Emma, who would you say stands to benefit from the emergence of Web3?
Well, just piggybacking off what Marta said, definitely the users. So, right now, as Marta indicated, the platforms control your data and they basically own it. So by platforms, I mean Google, I mean Facebook, right? But in the new coming era, which I'm very excited about, you control your own data. So say, and I know this is going to be very unusual for you guys, say you're annoyed at Google. You can literally just unplug your data, take it to another platform and use it. And that, I think, is really, really key, because that is going to force them to be better at, right? Exactly. They're going to be better at, really listening to what you have to say. It's going to be better for everybody overall, and by everybody I mean the users. Another thing it's going to be good for actually are the people who are building on the Web3 platform because of the protocol layer. The really good thing about that is that it's going to be cheaper and more effective, and so if anybody wants to be building on Web3, it's going to be really more cost effective for them, and so that's also a win-win for anybody who wants to come over to the Web3 side.
Yeah, so I'm starting to hear a number of themes, consumer choice, the ability to kind of take your business, move your business elsewhere, potential efficiencies. I'm old enough to have gone to college at a time when there was, in the US, just one phone company. And I remember complaining to one of my roommates about the cost or the quality of the sound. He's like, well, Jeff, if you don't like it, you can just take your business elsewhere. So that was not an option at the time. So Jean, turning to you, we've heard a little bit about the definitions of what Web3 is. What is the relationship between Web3 and then the blockchain itself and digital assets on a blockchain?
Well, so I actually think it's more about login with your wallet. If you think about it, what Web2 has been is that your identity is controlled by these massive players. And, I'm at that point actually where it's not clear to me whether it would be more painful to lose my passport or all of my social media. Because I'm actually known through my social media. I'm not known through my nationality, my identity. And what we're really talking about is the ability to actually have federated control of your own identity. So it's not as much even the assets. It's really your identity and complete control over your identity and the ability to selectively disclose it, to have real control over it, to have NIMs, to actually finally get to a place that, as a lapsed cypherpunk, we've all been trying to get to. And what's interesting about these large decentralized networks is they give you the trust that there's no one out to get you on them. It's a very, very hard thing to get 200,000 farmers on a Chia network to try to decide that your DID won't get in the next transaction. So in many ways, it's not just your money, but it's your identity and your money that we're talking about bringing to Web3. And so all of a sudden, you have both the ability to prove who you are, to selectively have reputation or not, and to be able to afford that, right? And that's important. I mean, when people really talk about anonymity, what we're really talking about is having more than one face, right? There are some things you want to do, and you do not want your day-to-day or corporate or whatever associated with that. And that's important. It's a social safety valve. And we've had it. I mean, the United States of America came about because people were willing to talk anonymously in ways that were treasonous. So, we need that. And so I think what really is exciting about Web3 is log in with your wallet, control your identity, and be certain of it. Now, the one thing I'll tell you is it sucks right now. Self-custody is really, really, really hard. And I mean, this will be a side rant, but I'm mad at all the Bitcoin maxis who are pushing back on Bitcoin Core, trying to create covenants. Now, covenants is a horrible word. What it means is you as a normal human being might be able to self-custody your identity and your assets. That's what we want. We don't want Coinbase to be the next Facebook. Oops, that was not what we were trying to do. So when you think about it as log in with your wallet and making wallets normal and human and easy, this to me is what Web3 and utilizing these blockchains is all about. Yeah,
so really a lot of opportunity, a lot of greater individual self-sovereignty is one of the themes that we're starting to hear as well. Consumer choice, greater self-sovereignty. Okay, so I think we've kind of established some of the propositions around kind of the benefits, the value propositions, why it's potentially good for individuals and society. So let's get down to the nuts and bolts. We're here to ultimately talk about, well, what is the infrastructure that is going to support that? And I'll turn to maybe Justin to kick us off, since he's our award-winning panelist, although I suspect all of my panelists have won many awards and recognitions for things. But Justin, I guess, being the latest. So what does Web3 infrastructure look like? And can you give us some maybe examples of existing Web3 infrastructure? Or is that still in the future to come?
Sure. If I may, can I just make a point on sort of how I would see Web3? I think the problem with Web2 is that it's, to quote Gavin Wood, it's broken by design. It's not about trust, because none of us trust big tech. It's about lock-in, and it's a system of business models and technology that is designed to kind of capture and corral users and farm them for value. And Web3, for all the features, and I agree with all the other points that were made, is an alternative where users are not captured and value farmed. And I think that's what we're all sort of trying to build. And so the infrastructure that enables that is infrastructure that, in a lot of ways is going to unbundle and perform some of those functions that we find in Web 2, but that does it in a way that is resistant to capture, and that maintains things like the sovereignty of the individual and all of these individual rights, and that technology that we can trust to protect the rights of the individual. As an example, with Boson protocol, we've built the technology to enable Web3 and the metaverse to conduct real-world commerce without having to trust an intermediary. So if you can replace intermediaries like Amazon, eBay, and Alibaba by code, then you have like kind of the Uniswap for physical goods, if you like. And if you can't do that, then for all that we're saying about Web3 and the metaverse, well, it doesn't mean a lot if every time you want to buy something from the metaverse, you have to do it via an intermediary. And so I think that these different layers of infrastructure, and because they're Web3, they're all composable, they all work together, and generally play nicely together. What we have is this ecosystem, almost like you can liken it to the Web3 players as like piranhas that are kind of eating some of these big whales of Web2. And I think what you're seeing now is this sort of dissolution of Web2 monoliths and an ecosystem forming instead.
And what would be some examples of some of these Web3 layers or infrastructures?
Well, you're seeing from identity to metaverses like our friends here at Decentralized. I mean, that is an infrastructure layer for a reality. And if you believe in the thesis that the metaverse is the next great interface of the web, and that we're going to increasingly be spending more and more time in these virtual realities, then it makes the question of, do we want to live in a proprietary controlled virtual reality, or do we want to live in a reality where the world itself, the infrastructure, is open and capture resistant and Web3. So I mean that's a really good example of a piece of infrastructure that's critically important to prevent kind of the capture of our reality, if you like.
Sure. And just to pick on Justin one more time, since he waited patiently and he was the last one I went to, what are some of the challenges that you see in building on or around Web3 infrastructure?
It's early. Things like interoperability are a challenge. Performance, scalability, all of these things are challenges. But when Amazon started doing e-commerce, it was on 36K modems, and you would read things saying this is just ridiculous, it's not usable, and it wasn't. But that's exactly the time to get in and build, because if you wait any later, you get left behind. And so there are technological challenges, scalability, user experience, complexity, all of those things, but they will be overcome, and all of that will become invisible, and we will build a new web that will maintain the sovereignty and rights of individuals in a way that Web 2 has captured.
Yeah. So Marta, speaking of building infrastructure, I understand that Filecoin has recently launched, I think yesterday announced, a new initiative to take decentralized file storage to a new place that it hasn't been before. Is that the bottom of the sea, and will it be waterproof?
It's not the bottom of the sea, Jeff. I'm so excited. I've been working on this for a really long time, and we got to announce it this week. So we announced that the Filecoin Foundation is partnering with Lockheed Martin to bring the Interplanetary File System, IPFS, to space. which was, thank you. That's how I feel. I'm so excited about it, honestly. This is a technology that's actually called the Interplanetary File System because from the beginning, it was envisioned as a technology that can make interplanetary or, networking in space possible.
And that was kind of 20 years ago. I mean, it's not yesterday.
Exactly. This was 2014 when IPFS was developed. Exactly. And literally called the Interplanetary File System because this is one of the problems it solves. And the way that it solves that problem is, imagine, if you're a machine or a person, but, just by way of example, imagine you're on the moon and you're surfing the web, or you're a machine and you're trying to get things back and forth, right? Which is more realistic. With today's centralized internet model, it just doesn't work in space because every time that you need to get data, whether that's clicking something, it has to come from a particular location in a particular server in a particular place. And so if that server is on Earth, then every single time you're trying to retrieve that data, it has to go back and forth from Earth. And so if you're on the moon, there's a multi-second delay. If you're on Mars, there's a multi-minute delay. And if you're a satellite somewhere, there's a long delay depending on where you are. And so that just does not work. The thing about IPFS and the way that it was created is instead of looking for data by where it is, it looks for data by what it is. So it will retrieve that piece of content from wherever is closest. So if someone else on the moon has already downloaded that data, it will get that data from there. Or if there's a closer satellite that has it, it gets that data from there. And so it eliminates these delays. So it really is something that can be a fundamental part of the networking infrastructure in space, just at this moment that we're really seeing this private space economy starting to emerge. So I am so excited about it.
That's great. No, congratulations. So it really, we truly are starting to see the interplanetary, starting to live up to its name. That's really, really exciting. Is it fair to say, Emma, that Web3 is already here, or it's partly here? How there are we so far?
We're here. We've still got a ways to go. We've still got a ways to go. Everyone can, everybody knows NFTs, the metaverse, things like that. So we can all agree that it's here. I think we're about 5 to 10 years from it being all that it can be. It's still in its infancy stages. And you guys know what we're talking about here, like, cost. If you have to do anything right now, the more people that are on a network, the more it actually costs right now if you want to use Ethereum. And so everyone's like, gas fees. We all hate gas fees. So everyone's trying to solve for that. And then you have this beautiful thing called Solana, and it works, except for when it doesn't. So we do have some ways to go in just sort of trying to figure out things like that, and
yeah. So would you say we're like 5% there, 15% there, 2%?
I feel like we're 5% there. I think that there are things that are going to happen that we don't know, that we can't imagine as yet.
Yeah.
And I think that when we're having this conversation in 5 years, we're going to be like, wow, we didn't really know, and we're still not even all the way there yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that does seem to be the case with a lot of technologies, right? Like looking at some of the development of, the internet and, websites. At first, all people did was they just replicated the thing that they did in sort of 2 dimensions and put them there. And then after time, people figured out, oh, wait, here's this totally new thing that we can do. So I think that we're still quite early in that, in that innovation cycle. So yeah, I'll be very, very excited to see there. Gene, what kind of technical savvy do you think is required or will be required of users of these kind of Web3, infrastructures? You spoke in your kind of initial comments about, wallets and some of the kind of clunkiness of that. And I sort of see like with, for people who, I'm trying to sort of explain NFTs to people, and it's like, you could show it to them, but it's like, wait, like normal person can probably figure out how to get ETH, but then how to sort of connect like their ETH. How much sophistication, and do you think it's going to stay that way?
Well, first of all, it's going to change. But to answer your question directly, right now you need to be the chief security officer of a 3-letter agency in the United States from a training perspective to correctly and accurately use this stuff. It is not where it should be. Very few people self-custody anything, and it's because of this. I mean, you are one phishing email away from losing that Bored Ape. So, it can't be this way, and it has been held back by certain technology decisions. You've got Bitcoin in a place where it is radically opposed at this point to enabling smart contracting capabilities, even though there are pathways. I think the smarter Bitcoiners are looking at things like Chia List, which we launched, and saying, look, that could get us out of this ongoing one-off change. The Ethereum account model is not friendly to custody. You cannot use the Ethereum model to easily enable things like rate limiting wallets and what we call a slow paper wallet. Like right now, you back up your wallet with 24 words, and if somebody steals those 24 words, they literally own you. We're going to change that to a paradigm where that 24 words is actually a smart coin that'll take 48 hours and might require you to stake 5% of the current wallet you're trying to recover. So if somebody steals that, you can steal their 5%, transfer your wallet somewhere else, and be a very happy camper.
Or they forget.
Pardon?
Forget it. Or they forget it.
Well, the nice thing about making that slow paper wallet not really risky is all of a sudden you can hand it to your lawyer. Right now, you wouldn't do that because you'd be handing them the keys to the kingdom. But so there's a bunch of UI and a bunch of tech here that's finally on the verge of being available. But we're not there yet. Between DID and the sort of on-chain enforced custody that we're all talking about, you're going to get to a world where your phone will be like, hey, you've created a new key. We recommend you do this. We recommend you do that. And you really will get to a place where 24, 48 hours, you lost your phone and that was your key, you get it back. And you also should do things like you should be able to go to your commercial bank and make them part of your M of N set of signatures. And they pay $10 a month for a virtual safe deposit box. And if you lose everything, you go to the bank, you prove yourself. It might take a day or two, but you get your stuff back. But tech is there to finally do that, but it's real young and it's not really available on Ethereum or Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I have to say, because that's going to be good, because I think we all know, or at least most of us know someone in this room who's lost their keys and have a lot of coins that are sitting there that they have absolutely no access to. So we can't wait for that to happen.
Yeah, and to get really truly widespread adoption, that kind of thing. It's just got to be easier for people, and where they're talking about the things that the technology does instead of the Byzantine generals problem and M of N sharding and whatnot.
And let me add, one of the neat things that's about to happen is that there's a correct computer security push to get everybody to use things like YubiKeys. Right? And it turns out that's the right answer for normal people, is to have these little tokens. What's interesting, though, is that a good hardware wallet with these kinds of additional controls on it is also a YubiKey. And so all of a sudden you may be in a situation where not only do you have your Web3 identity, you may also be replacing your Web 2 identity with a way that you really cannot be phished, you cannot be faked, you can control, and it's just not that hard as an end user. It sounds hard, it's not. It's now that you have like a physical key, and every once in a while you might have to confirm that it's you. That's it. And all of a sudden now it doesn't matter what password you use, you don't have passwords.
Well, it's still, when you travel back to the States, wherever you're going next, and see if you try to do it with your social media without the passport, and, love to see you pull that off. That would be pretty exciting.
Well, look, my social media has YouTube YubiKeys in it, so you can't get it.
That's great. So Emma, I know you spend a lot of time, kind of looking at the world of brands and those kind of things. How are incumbents and established online brands starting to respond to the advent of Web3 from what you see?
So I was quite shocked at how well we're seeing some first movers really kind of absorb and really get in the space. So the Metaverse had a fashion week in April, and Dolce & Gabbana was part of it, along with Cavalli and Tommy Hilfiger and a few other well-known names. And I was quite shocked that they were like, we want to find out more about this new technology. We really want to kind of get in there. And they're excited for the fall fashion week. And I was like, all right, now we're getting somewhere, right? Which is really good. We're also seeing that, Pepsi's really taking an interest in it. Nike, Adidas. We're seeing some companies that are actually opening shop in the metaverse. So they have virtual, they've got virtual stores. And we have some other stores, and I have to tell you this, guys. This one's a very interesting one. And I actually won't do a poll, but you have some people who you can buy an outfit in the metaverse, a designer outfit, and you can wear it only in the metaverse. You're paying the same price that you do in the real world. But the bonus is that you get to walk around in that outfit or have that bag or those shoes in the metaverse, so people know that you have it.
Yeah, well, I think that's it's sometimes hard to.
Sorry, next level, I get to rent it in the metaverse, so
Right.
I can actually yield a return.
Oh, we're gonna talk to you after. That's
Yes.
great. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Just
Yeah, go ahead.
To pick up on that point that Emma made, yeah, I mean, Boson Protocol was like the commerce partner with Decentralized for Metaverse Fashion Week, and we had lots of brands as well, not only buying the digital wearable, but also using Boson technology, buying a redeemable NFT that was redeemable for the real world item, the physical. And so we see a whole kind of trend towards this kind of phygitals, where if you buy a luxury handbag or sneakers, you'll get the physical and the digital, and Boson technology enables both of those to be represented as an NFT and bought and sold directly in the metaverse.
Can they do it in reverse? So you buy it in the real world and you get a digital one?
Absolutely. Ooh. Absolutely. Yeah, we just see these luxury, starting with luxury items, but all physical and digital things paired, and having a pairing.
We'll chat.
Yeah.
Well, and it makes a lot of sense. And I think if we all ask ourselves, have our lives become more digital or less digital over the last 5 or 10 years? Clearly, much more digital. Obviously, the pandemic accelerated that, but we all have video conferences instead of phone conferences. And 5 or 10 years from now, we'll be when we're not all together in person like we are here, we'll be doing it. We'll have avatars of ourselves. But as people spend time in their digital spaces, we're used to thinking about kind of fungible tokens in crypto, but in fact, most of the world is non-fungible. And people want, whether it's their clothes, their hair, their pets, other things, their outfits, their accessories, to reflect them as individuals. And so, of course, as people spend more and more time in their digital spaces, they will want digital things that reflect them, whether they own them or they rent them or whatever, other. We probably will have new verbs that we don't even have yet for those kinds of things. So that's, very, 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 very exciting. Maybe I think we're near the end of our time, but I did want to ask maybe Jean, what does governance look like in Web3? Sort of one of the differences between Web 1 and Web 2 is, right, there's a CEO of Twitter or Facebook who can kick people off those platforms, but there's no CEO of email who can tell you can't have email. What do you think governance looks like in Web3, kind of from the top and from the broader community?
Well, so I will say this, that the one thing that remains the same is humans. And we've got hundreds of years of understanding how humans are pretty horrible with each other all the time. What's interesting about a Web3 environment where you have good, strong control of your identity and the ability to join and leave is that all of a sudden, like being a member of an LLC, DAO, is something you can do. Now, I worry that people throw the baby out with the bathwater and go, oh, I've become a member of a DAO, therefore all the work will get done and I will make free money. And the answer is no. So what's interesting is the ability to much more narrowly choose what to come together on with less effort to create a community that does something. But then you still come back to trying not to be a homeowners association. And by the way, that is the number one problem with governance on the entire Web3 environment is most people have not spent time with their homeowners association and do not understand the perils therein. The people who want to spend a lot of time on governance are often not the person you want to be running governance for your organization. Now, what's great, as I said, though, is that the infrastructure now lets you build these, tear them down. Often these organizations work best when it's like, we've got one thing to do, and when we're done, we're doing this, and if it doesn't work, we're doing that, and that's it. And all of a sudden, a lot of these coordination problems get smaller. You actually get to go, oh gosh, what was the auction that Dalio won? This was 6-9 months ago, but it was Constitution. Thank you, Constitution DAO. That's actually a pretty good example of good governance. It was like, we're going to do this. Now, bad technology and gas fees got in the way of it all working out correctly, but that will get fixed. So I think what it boils down to is we're still going to have to be rooted at what we've learned over the last couple thousand years of civilization about how organizations work. But we can pull them up, use them, and tear them down much more quickly, easier, and fluidly with better kind of, do you want reputation or do you not want reputation, back to the identity point.
Yeah. It'll be very exciting. Diane, am I out of time? Okay. Okay. Oh, we do. Sorry. Oh, I thought you told me we were out. Okay, great. So staying on the theme of governance and maybe turning to Marta, one of the criticism that one sometimes hears about Web3 is that ownership or power can become concentrated through governance tokens, through who has the governance tokens. Is this something that you see as a cause for concern? Can this be can this be mitigated, or is this not really an area of concern from your perspective?
Well, I think we're very early, and I really loved what you said, Gene, about the HOAs. That was, I think, just so on point. I have so much to say about HOAs, but that's for another day. I think we're so early, and I think I think we're sort of learning a lot of these lessons the hard way, and that's fine. And I'm definitely curious what others have to say about that topic as well.
Yeah, I'll just add, I worry about proof of stake along these lines because capitalism is bad enough at concentrating wealth. Proof of stake is literally defined to concentrate wealth and concentrated wealth. So keep that in mind.
Right. So you're saying it's sort of analogous to kind of medieval fiefdoms.
Well, I mean, you're basically saying, hey, look, those with the most capital will have the immediate and most direct immediate return, which, by the way, capital usually gets you anyway. So not only do you have the usual returns to that capital, but you have the actual act of validating, adding to that capital base to make you even more central to the overall thing.
Yeah.
This is bad.
So it's interesting, as you were also was kind of thinking about parallels that you talked about the homeowners association, and I thought about, well, there's obviously utopian and dystopian ways that governance can go, and I thought about the Winston Churchill quote that democracy is the worst form of government other than all the other ones, and then there's like dystopian novels, whether Lord of the Flies or Animal Farm, where it turns out that some animals are more equal than other animals.
Well, look, in the last 15 years, California voted against gay marriage. Right? Direct democracy is a scary thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could just make the point, I think it's also about intention. At the highest level, it's about intention, and I think the kind of Web 2 governance models are about having a small subset of individuals who can direct the value flows of a network or organization towards a small set of individuals and away from the users and participants. And whereas in Web3, the opposite is true. It's about aligning the incentives of the users, the participants, with those that get the value. And so, although we are quite early, and these are kind of very complex systems and we may not have it right, it's about where we're aiming, right? We're not aiming to extract, we're aiming to have fair and equitable systems, and over many iterations and experiments, we will get towards that aim.
Yeah. Great. So maybe just in closing, I'll ask each of the panelists to kind of take a little look ahead into the future. Right now, we're celebrating GBBC's 5th birthday because it was established in Davos in 2017. So looking ahead to when GBBC turns into a 10-year-old, when Global Digital Finance in 2027, we'll be celebrating our 5th anniversary and the 10th birthday of GBBC. What will we be saying about Web3 infrastructure? Marta?
So I think for me, the thing that is one of the things that's the most powerful about this technology is the ability to write programs for your money, right? And with Filecoin, that's really what we're doing, is we're using that technology to incentivize moving away from the model where almost all data is stored on Amazon, Microsoft, or Google, and instead moving towards having sort of creating like a supercomputer-like network of many different computers that store data across it. And I think that's just one example of the way that you can use the programmability of your money. And I think we're really just starting to scratch the surface on what those use cases can be.
Sorry, what? Let me go through the line, and I'll make a comment. Yeah, and then we can take Q&A if there's time. Sorry, I don't wear a watch, so I was relying on Diana to tell me how much time we have left, and I think I misunderstood with them. We're 10 minutes left. Yeah.
So look, I think the quick answers in 5 years is going to be two things we'll be talking about. It's going to be what portion of the economy has moved on to these blockchains, and which are the winners and losers of both traditional finance and Web 2 on who decided to embrace or not embrace. I think that's going to be the most fascinating thing in 5 years.
I totally agree. In fact, I want that to be part of the Q&As that we ask people, because I've often wondered in the past week what's going to happen to those Web 2 companies who choose deliberately not to do Web 3? Are they going to be go obsolete? I think that in the end there is going to be, obviously, there's room for both, but they're going to get a very, very, very small piece of the pie. And I'm wondering if that small piece of the pie is going to force them to think, okay, maybe we need to do better. I also look forward to, in 5 years, people saying to me, Facebook gives me the best customer service. Oh my God, I got someone who answered my question right away. Same thing with Google. They were absolutely amazing. I love dealing with them. That's not going to happen, but anyway, it'd be nice.
Let's say, what's Facebook?
What's Facebook?
Yeah, I know.
Meta.
I think looking along this promenade at this sort of crypto takeover of Davos, that possibly in 5 years we might not even be mentioning the term Web3 because that would just be the normal in the same way the web is normal now. But I think the main driver for this change will not be technology; it will be consumers' realization that for several decades they've been the product, and that now that they have the opportunity to be part of networks where they get to share in the value they create. And I just think that just outcompetes, being a prisoner versus a beneficiary. That given that choice, I think consumers will move over en masse.
Well, it's very interesting what the what the Bitcoin white paper unleashed, and when I teach it to students, it's. Obviously it's designed to create this peer-to-peer system without intermediaries, but it launched in the wake of the financial crisis. And who were the grievances against? Governments, large banks, and central banks. Really, big tech was not perceived as the enemy. If anything, tech was, I think, perceived as the solution. And I think part of the consciousness that's evolved over the last 15 years or 14 years since then, is the importance of having alternatives to big tech. And I'm sometimes quite frustrated. Policymakers are thinking about, well, maybe we should break up Facebook and divide it up into Instagram and WhatsApp and this, and we should split it up. And the solution is right in front of them. It's like, well, you can break up the phone company, or you can establish and encourage these protocols to develop, and these things will fall away by themselves. So, I think part of the, discussion and engagement with policymakers is to help them see that there's more than one solution or more than one approach to get to, outcomes. And I think that's a matter of educating governments and the public as well about this. Okay, so it sounds like we do have time for questions. I don't know if this is going to be us asking the audience questions, or are they going to? You should ask the panelists questions. Yes, in the back.
Time for one question though, so pick well.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead, Mahela.
Go ahead. Are we giving her a microphone?
Hi, thank you. Well, amazing panel and very positive, and I'm all with you. I just wonder if there's any challenge that maybe we will encounter in the metaverse. Maybe it may become an escape from reality, and maybe I'm, sitting on the couch and immersed and excited about my sexy outlook in that garment, but eating chips and becoming obese, or who knows, or so and many other things which I can. So how about the bed in the metaverse? Is there any?
Well, so I reject the opiate of the masses argument, because I can go find you how newspapers are going to ruin the civilization, right? But I do worry about one thing. A favorite saying of mine these days, and I wish I could remember who to give it to for reference, but in Web 2, if you weren't paying for it, you were the product. In Web 3, if you don't know where the yield came from, you're the yield. And we're stuck in that problem, okay? And if we do not get control of the scams and the farces, we're going to continue to have overhang. It's not acceptable.
Other perspectives before we wrap up?
So brief comment. Some 2 months ago, I bumped into this legal perspective with great respect for all the legal professionals that are trying to improve the understanding of this work, about the layered universe in which we are moving into. Because basically we are moving into a layered reality in which we are living here in the natural reality, but in the same time, part of our personality is also present in the metaverse. And as in the real world, in the natural one in which we are living, the normality is the conscious behavior with legal consequences, transactional, and the exception is the game, in which we do not have legal consequences because we are in a playful mood. The metaverse is starting the opposite, namely it started from the game world initially, is developed like Decentralized or others by companies that are very much present in the game industry, and it is now stepping into the point in which we are developing conscious legal relationship other than just playful ones. So the shift there is a little bit the opposite than the shift that we have here as to what is the majority, what is the minority. And my point is the following: how we make sure that everybody who is actually present in the metaverse can make the distinction between I'm here to make a transaction, buying, selling something, or I'm here to play a game. Is this something that is impacting my layered universe, the current one, with some reality in it, like money owing or others, or it is that something that is without any consequences, but in the universe of the game? So the layered reality is something new for us, and we need somehow to deal with that. I'm very curious which are the mental models that you use for that. I use the Greek mythology, but I will let you with your
Go first.
Well, I believe lawyers were mentioned, so I think that's my I think that's my cue. I mean, I would just say this. I think, and this in no way addresses all of the points you've made, but just like to take a teeny tiny slice of what you've said and respond to it. I think, one of the things in this space is I think when you think about sort of laws and how you interact with cryptocurrency or these technologies, I think it's really a common refrain to say, oh, well, we need to regulate these technologies or we need new laws that apply to these technologies. My view is we don't need new laws to apply to these technologies. Laws are about activities. Laws are not about technologies, right? And so just to give you an example, it doesn't matter if you're committing fraud using cryptocurrency or pen and paper or email or the telephone or in the metaverse, right? Whatever that is, that activity is illegal and many different actions can be taken. And so I think in many ways we are trying, when we're talking about the law in this context, we're trying to create distinctions that don't actually exist, and we sort of can and do already sensibly apply existing laws and regulations to this technology.
Also, there's a history here that's really important. If you know where the credit card infrastructure came from, you will understand why the internet is as perverse as it is today. There is no finality in any transaction on the internet for up to 9 months. Okay? And so we do not have this idea that once you've done this thing, it is now complete. It is absolutely totally rewindable. It's why, back to that Web 2 joke, that you don't pay for things. Because in fact, if it's worth less than $5 to $10, it's more of a risk to run the business underneath it than it is to run an ad business and make money off your eyeballs. Blockchains bring finality back to everybody. People talk about smart contracts as replacing legal, don't worry. But that last mile of the rule of law, absolutely it replaces it. You get to a place where you understand exactly what the terms of this deal are, and then when you take it atomically, it's done. It's going to change and bring back, I think, some lawfulness that we've not had in our interactive spaces.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting that, and it's kind of almost a trick question, right? You say, which is faster, a transaction on the Visa network or a transaction on the Bitcoin network? And people always say Visa, but the fact is, you don't have finality of settlement. Finality of settlement, interestingly, is relevant in blockchain. It's also in my past experience as a regulator of financial market infrastructure, that's one of the international so-called principles for financial market infrastructures. You need to have kind of a clear legal system and set of rules for achieving finality of settlement so that there's predictability. So, maybe to kind of wrap up this panel where we started it, I think that, whether we're looking at Greek mythology or trying to figure out what the mental model is, I think clearly, for Web3, for people, consumers, societies, businesses, to realize all the many benefits of that we started the panel talking about, the infrastructure needs to be built. I'm surrounded by the builders, the biddlers, right? We're whether we're embarking on another crypto winter, nobody quite knows, but people are building this. And when we gather together, 5 years from now, and at the 10th anniversary of GBBC, I think we'll have a very robust and resilient infrastructure, which hopefully all of us are benefiting from. And so with that, I'd like you to join me in thanking my extremely knowledgeable, talented, and award-winning panelists.